how do we have a paradigm shift? How do we broaden our perspective? How do we look at things in a different way? I honestly believe that humor really helps us do that in a more immediate way. But if you notice within even the burnout literature, uh, there's very little that speaks to inviting humor back into our space
Mhm.
to help with that. Well, what a better way to kind of blow off a little tension by laughing and jiggling your diaphragm and settling your vagus nerve and just enjoying the moment.
Hello, everyone. I'm so thrilled that you are here to join us today, and I am so excited to have with us today Dr. Sue MacLellan-Tobert. She's a retired cardiologist and physician coach. We have so many things that we talked about a little earlier that I'd love to explore today with her, and what came to the surface is she shared the importance of getting back to being lighthearted, especially as we know so much about this world right now in general. It's quite heavy, and also being a physician, uh, supporting people through all the suffering that they're having right now, it can get really heavy. So, Sue, I am so excited to talk with you about that. Before I do, can you share a little bit more about yourself with the audience?
Sure, sure. Well, thank you, Jillian, for having me. I'm delighted to be here with you and connect with you and the listeners as well. So I am recently retired 2 years ago, pediatric cardiologist. I was in practice for a little over a quarter of a century. That's an interesting way to describe it. Makes me feel old, but not really. And I loved my career. I love children and have loved nurturing kids and families for a long time. And there actually came a moment in my career where I had to draw a line in the sand and step into the healthiest place I could be in for myself. And I think some of it required boldness and bravery to make that change and to retire. And I'm so grateful that I discovered coaching myself prior to retirement, that back in 2017, 2018, I received some coaching, thought this is something that can be so beneficial for myself and my colleagues. And with that, was able to co-develop an internal coaching program where I worked. But now that allows me also the opportunity to still connect with my colleagues in an entirely different way by being there to support them on their forward moving journeys to wherever that may be, their ideal self, I hope.
Mm-hmm.
And the lighthearted piece that you mentioned, I do think, humor and fun and frolicking, I think is the term you used. It's
Uh-huh.
kind of on short order in medicine nowadays. And why can't we bring that back,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
I hope that's part of our conversation today.
Absolutely. And there are so many things there, like I was saying to the audience earlier, we had so many things to touch on. Like the things that kind of raised the interest there was the moment you knew you got to make a change. And then what happens when you're leaving a place that you said you've been there a quarter of a decade or a quarter of
Yeah.
a century. So a lot of those things when it comes to when do I know and the identity and drawing out, those can be additional discussions that we have. And I think also intertwined with this need for a little bit more lightheartedness. For
Mhm.
me, when I first thought about this lightheartedness, we think about in my life, I was taught that humor and play is immature. You want to
Oh,
be
okay.
mature, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And I realized later actually play is very important
Mm.
to prevent
Mm.
and recover from burnout and to be silly reduces a lot of stress.
Yeah.
What made it so important for you to bring up
Yeah.
this topic?
Well, so it's an underlying theme in my life, really. I think my dad had a great sense of humor and was somewhat of a practical joker and just at times like just a real card. And I don't know if that could be possibly genetic, but that's probably the eccentric part of me is that I love humor. And if I can see a moment to make a pun or not ever poking fun at others, but even some self-deprecating humor, that's okay, no big deal. It just, I think, switches up our mindset a bit. And that's an important theme, I think, in coaching in general. How do we have a paradigm shift? How do we broaden our perspective? How do we look at things in a different way? I honestly believe that humor really helps us do that in a more immediate way. Um, there's lots of other ways to shift the mindset, taking the rest, giving yourself self-compassion, doing the self-care, etc. But if you notice within even the burnout literature, uh, there's very little that speaks to inviting humor back into our space to
Mhm.
help with that.
Mhm.
And I mean, gosh, we talk a lot now too about, okay, let's invite our parasympathetic nervous system to settle, et cetera, et cetera. Well, what a better way to kind of blow off a little tension by laughing and jiggling your diaphragm and settling your vagus nerve and just enjoying the moment. So anyway, I go on about it, but
Mhm.
I'm appreciative of what I think is an area that we don't talk about enough, is
Mhm.
inviting that lightheartedness back into life.
Yeah, what do you think that makes it true that we don't talk about that a lot?
Mm. Well, I do think within healthcare, certainly, time is at a premium. We're always on a rush. We got a laundry list of things to do that are quite serious in nature, taking care of patients who are ill. I think
Mhm.
that illness, the fear that our patients face, right? Those mirror neurons come back to us and we feel their fear, we
Mhm.
feel their grief. It's a drawdown for us. So to bring humor back into it can be a real challenge.
Mhm.
The interesting thing, though, in pediatrics is kids have this lighthearted nature. They haven't lost it yet. And I think that's what I loved about kids is they, even in the midst of their suffering, could say
Mhm.
something a little goofy or offhanded, and it would make everybody in the room pause and giggle a bit and totally shift the mood. And so kids teach us so much. And um, yeah, I think that's where I'm landing with it all.
Yeah, I was also noticing that because I work in head and neck cancer
Yeah.
and we have a lot of funny, really funny patients, and I didn't know if I should laugh or not because their situation was so serious.
Yeah.
And for me not to laugh alongside them kind of felt like it was doing them a disservice because their
Yeah.
coping skill was the humor and that was really helping. So it's trying to figure out, well, is this a coping skill that's really helping and,
Right.
and trying to navigate what does it mean to us if we are laughing?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think if people were to listen to this and they immediately felt some resistance? What did people
Mm-hmm.
miss out on when they're not going to bring some
Mm.
playfulness and humor back into their life?
Yeah. I think it's an opportunity to I don't know if this is the best description, but to just kind of give yourself a little bit of a tension release. So,
Hmm.
like we talk a lot about let's eat healthy, let's exercise, let's fit that into our daytime, let's connect, etc. All of that's really time consuming. Humor is instantaneous. To see something funny and to kind of have that little bit of odd bent on life um, takes just a second, but it can make you chuckle through the rest of your day as you reflect on it. And I'm like, gosh, that seems like a no-brainer to just do something that quick to provide yourself with a little bit of a break. Where's the humor in your day? Again, not poking fun at anyone else, but just looking for moments that maybe shine a bit brighter than others and give you that whew, lightness.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. When I was younger, my nickname was Silly Jilly.
I love it.
And I think back now, and I'm just, if I had taken myself less seriously on a lot of things, I think I would have performed a lot better.
Ah,
And then
mm,
when perfectionism, the rigidity comes in,
yeah.
it's more stressful and it kind of, you're talking about like the sympathetic nervous system earlier, and that threat of not doing things perfectly can interfere with our performance. And
Mhm.
I'm wondering, because I'm a long distance runner, and if you relax, you actually perform better.
Ah, yeah.
And if you tighten
Wow.
up, I think the same will be true because in medicine, right, it's really an endurance sport.
It is. It
And so
is.
if we can get that body to relax and thinking even about these serious questions, the existential ones in nature about the who am I and
Mm.
what's my
Mhm.
purpose in life? What am I going to do if I'm going to change roles within
Sure.
medicine? If
Yeah.
it's either drop down in FTE or migrate away. You created a wonderful infographic that I would love to invite you to share as a way to invite people to get to know a lot about more about you, and also as
Sure,
a way to reflect on how they can use this playfulness to really answer these deeper questions that they have.
sure, sure. Yeah. Yeah, let me set the stage for that by saying that identity's always been a big thing on my mind. Like, who is Sue, right? And I could identify myself just as a pediatric cardiologist, but then there's so many other labels. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, et cetera, right? But it's so much more than that. And I think that when I first received coaching and then started to learn about coaching and want to be a coach, um, what began to shine through to me is there are actually themes in my life that were present since childhood. And for some reason, a lot of them got put on hold during my medical career, probably because it's so cerebral.
Mhm.
But what would it look like for me to explore the themes that underlie Sue's life and go back and visit some of those ones from earlier? Do they even make sense in today's day and age? And I think that's where my initial mentor coach helped me exploring kind of what my life purpose is, and pulling on those themes was fun to do, to kind of curate who I am and what my identity is and how I've showed up so many times in life, even though maybe I hadn't named it. And so that's where this whole little life purpose statement came from. And I'm going to show it now, share it with everyone now. Um, and hopefully it gets a bit of a chuckle. But when my mentor coach that I was working with, Gail Gazelle, lovely, lovely, amazing woman and coach, encouraged me to develop this statement, I went back to some of the things that I loved earlier in life, which truly was kindergarten. What I loved about kindergarten was mainly snack time and rest. And to me, I'm like, there's that little rule book out there of some of the best things in life we learned in kindergarten,
Oh,
like be
yeah.
kind to each other and all of that, right? I'm like, I think that holds true in how I want to show up in life. But when I curated this intention statement, I thought, not only do I really want to be a kindergarten teacher and share those beautiful, wonderful, playful kindergarten principles with people, but I'm also a bit of an amoeba, and I want to explain that to you because it seems kind of a little off base. But when I was pregnant with my first daughter, Jillian, I think it was maybe a week before I delivered. With total sleepless night, I go and I turn on the TV. I'm rolling around on the couch, totally uncomfortable. And the program that I landed on PBS was the life cycle of the amoeba.
Oh, wow.
And little did I know or recall, but when an amoeba replicates, and of course, here I am, this human pregnancy pod about to replicate. When an amoeba replicates, they begin to kind of shake a little part of themselves, and then they flick it off into space, and there's a new amoeba. And literally, as a very pregnant woman, I thought, well, why couldn't I just do that? Roll my belly around and flick this off, because that would make life so much easier. And so I've always carried that amoeba metaphor with me. But it then began to expand over time. And in that, I think when we connect with people, we leave little bits of ourselves with them. And if we are in that positive emotive state where we're encouraging and filled with gratitude, or this lightheartedness that we're talking about, that builds within the other person, and we mirror each other. If I'm really drawn down and sad and grief-stricken and burned out, well, we share that part of us too, right? And where would I, as Sue, want to really land? And so that's how I became an amoeba kindergarten teacher, sharing the ABCs of nurturing with others. And I think that really resonates with me. I did that through my entire career working with families and children with heart disease. I did that with my colleagues. I'm just wired that way. Yep, I walked through burnout. I walked through a lot of grief and loss in my family for a period of time and came out on the other side. If there's anything that I learned there, could I simplify it and share it with others like a kindergarten teacher might be doing? Is there a way to encourage rest and self-care and uh, snack time, those bio breaks, right? All that kind of stuff. That I just want to kind of get that word out on the street, as now I am functioning in the coach role. So one of the biggest questions I remember asking myself when I was thinking about retiring and doing coaching more full time is what if these 30 years of practicing medicine, what if that was only the preparation for what I'm doing now in this latter part of my life? That was a really
Wow.
bold question to ask. Sometimes we limit ourselves in our thinking. We think
Mhm.
this is the only thing I could do. I've spent this many years training in medicine. How could I do anything else? What if it's only prep? What if the themes of your life can shine through in an entirely different way and you can begin to explore your life purpose, not just your identity as a healthcare provider, physician, or whatever you might be doing in life, but what if you can take your greater life purpose, name it to tame it, have fun with it, share it with the world, and just begin to more fully reside in that purpose. Hmm. It's a bold thing to think about. And so I invite listeners, wow, who might be interested in exploring life purpose. What are the themes that shine through life? And I know you've talked a lot about values before too.
Mhm.
What are your values? What are your non-negotiables? What are your strengths? There's going to be a story in there that's been present your entire life
Mhm.
that is more than who you are right now.
Mhm. Oh, this, when you were talking, I felt it so deeply in my heart. You were speaking straight to that core heart and soul. It was so grounding to hear you speak of it in this way.
Mm,
And some of the questions that people ask around values is how do I know? How does Sue know what her core values are that are showing up in these themes?
mm. Well, I'm going to come out a share
Okay.
for a minute to answer that. So, one of the very first coaching courses I took to become a coach, I recall, like here I am, I'm a, a s- a sage physician, been in practice for how many years, and the coach leading the course as I'm doing some sort of little buddy coaching activity said, Sue, just take a minute. What do you value? What do you value in life? It totally um, surprised me. Like I could say things that are pretty standard. I value honesty, I value integrity, I value good patient care, whatever. But no one had ever really invited me, and I was, I think, probably in my mid 50s, invited me to do a deeper dive into what is truly within me for my core values.
Mm-hmm.
And so until I actually looked at a list of words, sometimes our vocabulary is not big enough to name our values, name our feelings, name our needs, right? Look at the list of words.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to pull out, yeah, actually, I am a nurturer. Actually, I do value lifelong learning. Actually, I'm a big advocate of autonomy. And
Mm-hmm.
so once I, was able to name maybe those top 10 values, then I was able to say, gosh, how is my life now aligning with these values and not aligning?
Mm-hmm.
And things became much more clear as
Mm-hmm.
to my choices.
Mm, I love this. Thinking about, I have two questions. I'll start with the first one. When you were thinking about that nurturing, those values that were speaking to you, how did you attune to say, these are my values, not the ones I should have, these are my values?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really important point because we might forecast and say, gosh, I wish I was like that, right?
Uh-huh.
I
Yeah.
think what I did is I journeyed back and did a little bit of reflection on my life
Mm-hmm.
and said, what are the themes that are here that have shown up again and again?
Mm-hmm.
And specifically for the nurturing, because that's very often day to day my top value.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was more than altruism. I just wanted to be there to care for others. And I think when I made the choice for becoming a pediatrician
Mm-hmm.
and further training, I felt like there was a piece of advocacy that I could do with the knowledge and skill set that I was given that would nurture children who were suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And that just shone through over the years. From the time I was a babysitter as a 13-year-old, I'm like, well, gosh, there is a theme there. And guess what? Now you have a word to name it. It's nurturing. It's not just advocacy for children with heart disease. It's not just um, patient care, right? It has a broader a broader designation.
Mm-hmm.
And so that I think the word spoke to me.
Nice. And the second question, kind of going off of that, because it sounds like you were really able to use once you grabbed the nurturing and the other values that spoke to you and you named them, it sounded to me that you were saying it kind of created this compass and it was guiding you to realize where you were in alignment and where you weren't. So when it came to using it as a guide and
Mhm.
just the experience of it, what was your experience for yourself and the mind, body, spirit uh, about your wellness, how you felt when you were using the values as a guide, and if you noticed you were in alignment, or if you noticed, oh, nope, a little bit of off of my values.
Mhm. That's a very interesting question, Jillian, because sometimes what I noticed as I was using those values as a compass, I would have an epiphany. So here's an example. I can be really good day to day at nurturing others. The epiphany was, Sue, how are you nurturing yourself?
Mm,
Really, really important that we don't forget about ourselves. And that was, I think, really key to me understanding the degree of burnout I had. I'd been spending so much time nurturing everybody else. I was nothing more than a head on a stick showing up to do the work and training that I was good at. And guess who got left in the dust?
mm-hmm,
Me, right? And until I had that realization that my values needed to apply to me as well, hmm, I didn't know how to do that. Then saying, gosh, Sue, you need to nurture yourself. I could make many more intentional choices around what I was doing. Do I say yes to this project or not? Well, where does Sue fit into that? Is there are you losing nurturing time for yourself, Sue, if you're doing more of this in evening hours or
mm-hmm,
whatever, right? And so it kind of helped me with the decision making much more. But it didn't come without some painful realizations that I'd forgotten about myself.
mm. And that it kind of speaks to Kristen Neff's. Are you a fan of Kristen Neff's work,
Absolutely.
Self-Compassion?
Yeah.
She talks a little bit about that backdraft.
Mm,
Have you heard of that term before?
yes, yes.
And for people who might not have heard of the term, or if you haven't, we'll just explore it here. Is Kristen Neff talks about it's a firefighting term for the audience that the firefighters, once they go to fight the fire, if you open a window, you let oxygen in, and first the flames get a little bit bigger before you start to tame them.
Mhm,
And what I captured in what you were saying is like a painful realization that, oof, we're realizing, oh, we need to nurture ourselves more, be kind to ourselves more. But in the beginning, it might be more painful. One of my thoughts on that is because we're recognizing all these times where we have not given ourselves that.
mhm.
For you, what was that pain coming from?
Well, it's interesting because I don't know that I would really name it as pain.
Mm,
I think it was a, a realization. I'm not a big person about regrets. So uh, it's happened. There was an experience there. What can I take forward and try to do differently or better the next time?
mm-hmm,
So, for example, I'm a nurturer. I'm not nurturing myself. What can I take forward from that to try and do differently?
mm-hmm,
Hmm. Find a little space in life soon now to take care of yourself. Maybe it's more time off. Maybe it's trying to adjust the call schedule. Maybe it's making certain that you're taking a decent break for lunch instead of reading echocardiograms and trying to fill your face with crackers.
mm-hmm,
So, that's, I think, where my brain goes. So I could sit in pain if I chose to do that, but that's not kind of how I'm wired.
mm-hmm,
It's like I'm going to learn from this and I'm going to move forward.
mm-hmm,
And if there's something that could potentially be of benefit to anyone else, I'm willing to share it, even if it means being very transparent about my own journey. Case in point, or an example, when I was early in my career, my first daughter had been born. I was 20 weeks pregnant and woke up one morning and did not feel the baby move. And of course, I have a skill set. I have an echo machine in my office. I can check my own fetal heart rate, and there was no heartbeat.
mm-hmm,
So, uh, wow, that's a big realization in that moment. And the skilled Sue can say, gosh, I need to call my OB, I need them to double check, I need to set figure out what I'm going to do with my morning patients. This is going to be a big deal. I'm probably going to get admitted, right? All that logical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and at that point in time, I wasn't nurturing myself very much. I just went into automatic doctor mode. I'm going to take care of Sue this way with what I know how to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so as things progressed, yes, I delivered the infant and never did really find out what happened. But that was my first personal experience with that degree of loss.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it took me about a year to get through that, including some postpartum depression. But what I began to learn about myself then is I needed to slow down. I really needed to say to my partners, I can't go back into the newborn nursery right now. I'm so grief stricken. I needed to do a deeper dive in understanding grief, like what exactly is going on here? How can I take care of myself? So as I walked through that journey, where I came out on the other end is being more compassionate with myself, understanding more about postpartum depression and tending our grief because it comes at us our entire lives from all different directions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then eventually I was able to say, gosh, if there's anything learning wise here that could be a benefit to another woman who might walk the same path, and so many of us do walk that path,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, I'm going to be willing to share that hard story. And I've done that and I've supported women walking through that. I mean, that's just what I think what we're called to do is when we give ourselves grace, if we come out on the other side, we can be there for others.
Mm. I'm so sorry for your loss.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And it's a part of how I'm woven together.
Mhm.
It's an important part of my story. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're so right that I've heard so many, especially women physicians that had miscarriages and then had to go back to work or
Yeah.
and then we stuff down that grief and
Yeah.
I recognized a whole lot of unprocessed grief and then what happens? What does that look like? I think sometimes burnout gets used as a label that sometimes it's unprocessed grief.
Right. Right. Yeah, grief is a fascinating emotion to me.
Mm-hmm.
And we hold it simultaneously with so many other emotions, right? Um, and so personally, having done a deep dive into grief when I lost a number of family members in just a short amount of time and trying to navigate work with all of that, etc. I actually am very fond of grief. It teaches us a lot about ourselves. And if we come to befriend grief,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's not our enemy. It's just part of who we are as humans. And we can love and we can laugh and we can find joy all simultaneously with grief. Um, it's a really fascinating conversation, but maybe that's for another day, Jillian.
Yeah, we have all these other things. I know we're going to get back to the whimsical that we promised people. And
Yes,
also,
whimsy.
well, the interesting thing too, when we're thinking about grief, I lost my ex-boyfriend, passed away when I was in residency, and that was been, at a time point, it's been 10 years.
Mm,
And what I feel talking about now is he's so funny. So funny.
mm,
We were in dental school together, the humor. Whenever we
mm,
get in arguments as a couple, it's like
mm.
I say air quotes arguments because they were like not that serious. And he used to just funny things to like because it wasn't
Ah,
that serious. And
yeah.
because it wasn't that serious, he made a joke and it made me laugh and we got out of it, right? It was like, oh, you're
Mm,
right, it's not that serious.
yeah.
Um, and so how, people can be like, oh my gosh, we're going to talk about these loss and we're going to laugh and oh my gosh, is this socially appropriate?
Right.
And here we are back to this topic of
Mm,
lightheartedness.
yeah. Yeah. So I'm a big believer in intuition. Like, what's your gut telling you? And I guess there's other labels out there, EQ, emotional intelligence, all that kind of stuff, right? But
Mhm.
I'm not a big one for trying to rate us on scales of IQ and EQ, etc. All of us have intuition. If we turn inward and focus on our heart and our intuition and our gut, and we just invite our whole body to be present, we're going to know what's appropriate to do next. And if that means laughing alongside someone who's in the midst of suffering because they're laughing,
Mhm.
or just simply showing up and being present, or saying, what support do you need? Right? Asking the other person how they want you to behave.
Mhm.
Hey, wow, that's kind of unique. How often do we do that?
Mhm.
Um, so I think just trusting ourselves that we're whole and creative and naturally resourceful and we can figure it out, and um, giving ourselves the space to do so is okay, including in the midst of grief.
Mhm. What you said there too really brings to mind about how we're trained to be up in our head so much.
Mm.
And in
Yeah.
order to survive training and be physicians and other healthcare professionals, we kind of dissociate from our needs. And if
Yeah.
we dissociate from our intuition and from our ability to tune with self, then we compromise our ability to tune with our people in front of us, whoever they are. And where you brought in again that intuition and also that humor and you said creativity
Hmm.
is then we can relax so that we can better attune.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, what does it look like if, if people are hearing this whimsical, I want to get creative, we'll be, if they're still using their thinking brain, okay, how can I do that? What are
Right.
some ways that you've been able to do that in your own life?
Yeah. Humans are amazingly creative. Like I just am kind of amazed every day at how the world runs. Like I realize there's a lot out there with politics and war, et cetera, et cetera. However, the world is getting better in general, and we are moving forward and we are inventing things. So
Mhm.
recognizing that creativity exists within us. Um, I'll share this mindset shift that I did a number of years ago before I ever even knew that there was such a thing as coaching. Um, I appreciate creativity. I like to write. I like to write poetry. I like to draw, those sorts of things. And I thought, what if I was to do a little check-in with myself at the end of the day to say, Sue, what did you create today?
Mm.
Maybe it was creating a happy conversation. Maybe it was creating a joke. Maybe it was creating lunch for my kids and tucking a little mom note in there. Maybe it was creating a restful place for me to unwind at the other end of the day and soak in a tub, right? It could be anything. It doesn't have to be a masterpiece.
Mhm.
But that simple invitation for me was like the equivalent of looking for gratitude at the end of the day. So there's different ways to do that. If doing a gratitude journal doesn't resonate with you, figure out what you create every day. And once you get into that mindset, you realize I'm creating things all day long.
Mhm.
And with that, then you kind of get a little jazzed up and you're like, well, what else could I create? What could I
Uh-huh.
create tomorrow? Right. And so then you're on a roll. Again, it switches up that mindset kind of into that positive emotive state where it's going to get catchy. Other people are going to want to tag on the creativity train, and you begin to see it in the workspace. You have a little lighthearted lunch talk with somebody, you've created that space. And then maybe a few days later, you witness them doing something similar with another colleague, right? It multiplies.
Mhm.
And so I think that's part of what we're kind of called to do is share our creativity. The other thing about intuition is um, trusting it, right? So we live, like you said, in this headspace where there's so many algorithms and protocols and SOPs. I mean, just that's how medicine is nowadays and how corporate medicine is. But where, when we're short on autonomy, might we invite our own creativity in?
Mhm.
Uh, and that involves kind of trusting your gut. Okay, well, here's an example. Um, Many years ago, I had a little patient who he was probably about four or so, very, very tragic congenital heart disease. He actually went on to pass away. And what my intuition said to me is, as part of my grief tending, I needed to connect with the family a little bit more. Not in a selfish way, but I just felt there was maybe a loop to close there in our communication. And what I was really feeling prompted to do, and I think the promptings that come up in our minds we need to pay attention to, was
Mhm.
to make a visit to the home
Mhm.
after the fact. And so I reached out to the family. I said, would you mind if I came over? I'd love to bring some food and just share a moment with you. And the parents and I, we both agreed at the end there was something that was unfinished around that, and spending that time together
Mhm.
was a benefit to both of us. If I hadn't listened to that prompting and made a step forward with it, we would not have been able to create that ending that I think was necessary for both of us because we were both grieving his passing.
Mhm.
Um, so the world would tell us who makes house calls nowadays, right? Who brings a fruit basket to the parents of a grieving child? Why would you even connect with them? There's probably some liability issue there.
Mhm.
Yada, yada, right? Follow your heart.
Mm. It's definitely what was coming to my mind about the barriers that people might be afraid, right? When it comes
Yeah.
to what I think is such a disservice in our healthcare, I was thinking about the barriers that we create to the humanity,
Yeah.
really, and you leaned into that. I was holding back tears. It's such a
Mm.
beautiful story. I'm so glad that you honored it.
Yeah.
And thinking about when we're trying to figure out solutions, we go on, we research all these things, yet to
Mm.
answer the intuition's call, we need to be listening.
Yeah.
And what I find, I've recently started more contemplative exercises. I'm in a
Mm.
spirituality class for my last classes of marriage and family therapy, and what you captured there was something that I've been leaning towards is really that tuning in, tuning
Mm.
in and I think that our desire to get inquire more knowledge, to seek answers outside of ourselves, to go all these places, we can miss those cues. And I'm an overthinker. I don't know very many physicians who aren't. And we get caught up, right? Should I
Yeah.
do this? And by the time we figured out we're exhausted, we do not
Yeah.
know anymore what were our cues,
Mm.
what was my intuition, and now
Yeah.
what did I, and so that's such a beautiful capturing of how you can really tune into our intuition and the reward that it brought for you and the family. Are there things that you do in your everyday life to really connect with your intuition and kind of, I think about developing it as a skill to connect with
Yeah.
yourself?
Yeah. Well, let me add something too. You talk about knowledge, and I think a broader way to look at intuition is wisdom, right?
Mm.
We come with such a collection of experiences, each one of us. Why don't we value that more? All that
Mm.
we've learned in life, all that we've touched and experienced and breathed in, etc. And so, yeah, we can amass this huge fund of knowledge, and where's the wisdom? And I think that is sometimes when I think of some of the uh, maybe my physician mentors. There was this art of medicine, right? I think they were really speaking to the wisdom, trusting
Mm.
that intuition piece. And so I say to myself in the morning time, not only what do I want to create today, but don't forget to listen to these promptings from your heart. And that's just kind of my guideposts. So sometimes my family thinks I'm a little wacko because they'll say, uh, are you serious, Mom? Are you sure you want to do that? Or my husband will be, really? And I'm like, that is the good, right, and kind thing to do according to my heart in this moment. It might not be like that tomorrow, but we got to think about the now, right? What's
Mhm.
happening right here, right now. If I am, this happened not too long ago. Our whole family went to Dairy Queen for ice cream. And this young couple who looked like they were probably homeless came up with their dog and they were just sitting outside on the sidewalk. Like the alarm bells in my head are like, well, I don't know when they've eaten last. And do I invite myself in and talk to them? And do I just bring them out some food, right? And then it's just like, Sue, there's something going on here. You need to pay attention to what's going on in the ether, in the universe around you, not just what's in your brain. And so I said, guys, I'll be right back. Keep eating your ice cream cone. Went up, bought burgers and ice cream because I thought if I just buy ice cream and they haven't eaten, they're going to get diarrhea. I don't want
Mm.
that, right? See how the mind takes over?
Mhm.
And I went out and I sat on the curb with them with their beautiful dog. We had a conversation. They ate dinner. I'm not sharing this story. Believe me, I want to be so humble. I'm not
Mhm.
sharing it to shine a light on me. It's an example of we have to listen to the promptings of our heart.
Mhm.
And my family, I turned around and they're all kind of looking out the window at me. And my older daughter said, Mom, what made you do that? I'm like, I don't know what made me do it, but I listened to it. And they have a fantastic dog. Her name's Sasha. They did need a meal, in fact, and now they're going to keep walking to wherever they're going. That's okay. I
Mhm.
mean, why not connect? So just taking those opportunities. Um, waving at the person who has road rage if they think they cut you off and giving them a smile isn't really meant to irk them more, although it might. So, choose your actions wisely.
Hmm.
Doesn't always work out, but yeah.
I think also thinking about all you've done for your inner self and your own guidance and what the self-compassion work that I've at least explored helps is really seeing that common humanity. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of the disservice in our societal drive for independent success is we have like this competition. Oh, that's a them problem, not a me problem. But evolutionarily, and at
Mhm.
least I believe in the spiritual interconnectedness of us all, that for me, it's just you exude when I'm listening to you, is that person was there in that moment of suffering. You were able to see it because you were open, you were willing to be open, and you met the needs that they had in that moment. It was so beautiful.
Yeah. Well, you brought something up to mind. I do have a word of caution. So you can over nurture. You can over
Yeah.
nurture others, right? And not only to your own detriment, but I have been told, Sue, I don't need nurturing right now.
Uh-huh.
And so my takeaway from that is ask, right?
Mhm.
That's where we
Yeah.
use our what and how questions as coaches, right? Is how might I support you in this moment? Or what
Mhm.
support do you need? Let them answer for themselves. And then can we meet that need or not?
Mhm.
Uh, we don't have to take it all on our shoulders, right? If they simply say, what I need right now is for you just to sit with me, okay.
Mhm.
Or what I need right now is just some space, okay. We can respect that. Don't take it personally. It's not meant to be an affront, right? So you have to find that balance with it too, because
Mhm.
for someone who loves to nurture, you can over nurture,
Mhm.
and when you overuse a habit or use a habit that maybe served you well previously but isn't serving you well now, that's kind of the awareness we need to have. I think that's the other thing, is that self-awareness.
Mhm.
Should I step in here? I'm getting this prompting. You got to balance it.
Mhm. Yeah, I value that a lot. I hear sometimes people, when they're offered help, it takes away their autonomy or it makes them feel less
Yeah,
competent. And so you're
yeah,
trying to figure that out. What do they need? That makes a lot of sense to me.
yeah. Maybe they don't need me right now, and that's okay too, right? Don't take it
Hmm.
personally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something else that you were saying earlier when it came to creativity, because a lot of times, like, I don't have enough time. And what you really showed was how you were looking for ways you were already being creative
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
how we can integrate it into our life and see it as something that's taking away some of our stress. In coaching for Martha Beck's program, we talk a lot about taking things away, not adding. So that can
Mm,
be taking away the distress or taking away the
mm,
barriers towards
mm,
whatever joy, contentment, peace that
mm,
people have. So I
mm.
just wanted to highlight that because that really stuck out as
Yeah.
we're not here to say you got to go add more.
Right.
We're
Yeah.
hoping you're already seeing it and that it lights up some of that spark within that maybe has been ignored just
Right.
based off of where life has gone and
Right.
kind of bringing you back to parts of
Right.
yourself.
I appreciate what you're saying, and it makes me chuckle a little bit because when I have um, studied adult development theory, right? Grown-ups don't like being told what to do.
Uh-huh.
That's kind of how it is. So
Yep.
we're not here to say you need to do more of this or you need to, do more of that. I think that's where, somebody's saying to do better self-care, you need to exercise 3 times a week. I don't need to be told what to do. That's just not going to
Uh-huh.
resonate with me, right? Find what really fills your cup and find what really um, makes a connection with your heart, not just your mind, but your heart and your mind. That is going to land you being in sync with your values, guaranteed there, right? But we're not here to tell you what to do.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
One of my favorite books is Humble Inquiry. Have you heard of that book?
I have not, no.
Okay, it's Humble Inquiry, the gentle art of asking instead of telling.
Yes, yeah,
And it speaks to what you just said. Humans, we don't really like to be told what to do. Sometimes there can be some exceptions to that when it comes to, if people are really seeking guidance. But in
right,
general,
Right.
people do the opposite, right? Don't tell me what to
Right.
do. I'm not going to listen. It kind of reminds me of being a kid when my mom was
Yep.
like, go clean your room. And I was already doing it. I'm like, well, now I don't want to do it. You know, darn it. Don't,
Exactly.
right? Because I was like so excited. I was the self-starter. And then you told me what to do. And it took away my enthusiasm for like showing
Uh-huh.
you that I was doing it without being told what to do.
I was going to surprise you.
Yeah. And that goes into coaching, right? It's that
Yeah.
gentle art of asking. You're not
Right.
there to tell. Would you mind sharing about what do you do in coaching? How do you help people?
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite themes in coaching is around communication. And the style of communication that we're exposed to within healthcare is very direct, demand, command, time pressured, right? And the clock really works against us. It drains our energy. And and so I'm a big believer in nonviolent communication. I love Marshall Rosenberg's work around that. And it really switched my mindset up because we don't have kind, compassionate communication typically with our colleagues in medicine. We're giving orders to our coworkers. We're, reporting out. It's just it's not that kind of human connection that we probably thrive on. So, if a client comes to me and says, sometimes this is a common one, oh, I'm being sent to coaching because I had a spicy conversation with somebody and now they told me to go get fixed. And I'm like, oh, time out. You don't need fixing, actually. You're whole already.
Mm.
So let's switch up that message. And wow, let's explore some different ways to communicate. And what I like about the nonviolent communication technique is it's such an easy stepwise approach. What am I observing in my environment? How does it make me feel? If there's a real negative feeling there, like now I'm fearful, well, often that means there's some sort of unmet need. What do I need? I need safety or security, or I need to take a break. I need to step out of this situation or this meeting. Well, then the last step of that approach is make a request. Make a request of yourself or whoever you're with. Don't make a demand, make a request, and then allow a response, not a reaction. We don't have to react anymore in our environment when we slow down.
Mhm.
So I think once I kind of saw the light with that style of communication, I thought, gosh, I think this can really be a benefit within our medical communities and our organizations. It can ultimately make a shift to a more healthy culture if we begin to, with one another as coworkers, have kinder conversations. And the humble inquiry sounds like it would be the same thing, right? We're asking um, what needs somebody has. And then it actually, we have to learn how to make a request because we're so used to making demands and giving orders. How do we request that self-compassion piece? What do I need to request of myself? I actually need to request that I step out of this meeting where I feel like I'm being, criticized. That's okay to do. It's okay to say time out. And some of the other things I work with on clients is energy management because we're in this real time driven environment. We forget that energy is really probably our bigger driver. How full am I with my energy when I come in the door? What immediately starts to drain me? What can I use to fill it up again? That might be the bio break or the snack. It might mean taking a few deep breaths to settle the nervous system. Okay, now it's being drained again. I just had a difficult patient. That might mean taking 2 minutes of just closing your office door with the lights off.
Mhm.
So, looking at that daily rhythm of our energy shifts is so much more important, I think, to help us manage through what are these kind of 15-minute, 10-minute increments of work that we have to get through.
Hmm. I really love how you captured that. And something that you really highlighted there too was when people are struggling, when they're having some sort of response or some reaction that on the outside looks like, oh, what happened there?
Yeah,
And they get labeled. I
yeah,
value that question of what did you need in that moment? Because
yeah,
often that nervous system fight or flight, it's an unmet
yeah,
need, usually that threat, and you took away that label, I'm broken, something's wrong, and you asked, we do this in couples therapy.
yeah,
And I think when we develop the skill at home or at work, it goes to support you in other nonviolent communication with other
yeah.
relationships that you have in your life. And
Mhm.
it also supports people with asking themselves, what is this bringing up for me? What do
Right.
I need? Because a
Right.
lot of times people are like, no idea, especially after years of abandoning our needs. Like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what I need. And you
Yes.
just invited them to explore it
Yeah.
with that
Yeah.
curiosity. And I think one of the most healing things is to have someone on the other side to explore it with curiosity, compassion, and non-judgment. Because there's
Mhm.
so much in medicine, so much for the people that I've met, including myself, going into medicine, the judgment, the shame, all those
Yeah.
narratives are attached to such kind of sticky, painful emotions at times, and we get to
Yes.
explore them and can have some
Mhm.
corrective emotional experiences with
Right.
someone who's sitting there and not judging us and saying, let's see what you need.
Yeah, and slowing the pace down too, right? Wow, wow, that's amazing. It's interesting because one of the most common habits I see in medicine is that of those four steps of nonviolent communication, you go from observation to reaction. Instead of observation, what am I actually feeling? What do I need? What can I request, right? And so we hone this neural pathway of observation, reaction, observation, reaction. Sometimes it's with maybe the same person, the person that we don't like, the person that we see, and then we say, oh, I hate that person. They irritate the crap out of me, right? We get the feeling right, maybe, and then reaction. What would it look like to say, okay, there's the person that maybe I don't like so much. What do I need? I need to turn the other direction. That just going through that process and getting to the point where you can make a request rather than react slows everything down. We move too fast in medicine. We haven't given ourselves the ability to really slow down enough to think the whole process of communication through.
Mm. And our sequels that I'd love to invite you on, the whole slowing down, and it's part of your on your website that captured my attention is
Mm,
that you were really embracing that slowing down and that help you to see, at least from what I took away from it. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but in that slowing down, you had a little bit more clarity around what you needed and where you
absolutely.
wanted to go in life.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. The value of just that ability to take a breath, manage that energy, pause and look around, right? Just be aware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's easy, sounds easy, but it's simple but not easy, right?
Yeah.
It's simple but not easy.
You're exactly right. So I've been in the coaching space now for about 9 years, and it continues to be a journey of learning and evolution, and practice change, right? Making choices, trying, experimenting with new ways of thinking and being. So it doesn't happen overnight. But it makes me think of the steps of learning, where we've all been through this, especially in medicine. We start out unconsciously incompetent, right? We don't know what we don't know. And then that first day of med school, well, okay, gosh, now I'm consciously incompetent. And it's going to take me years to become consciously competent. And now, when, 30 years into a practice, or many years into medical practice, you're unconsciously competent. You could do anything that you do with your skill set with your eyes closed. Wow. So give yourself a little grace as you're walking up those steps, because that takes energy. Just think about physics. To go up a step,
Mhm.
right? Takes energy. Um, but it can happen slowly over time. And that's where the pause and the patience comes into.
Mhm. And honoring, like you said, it wasn't one, didn't happen overnight. And
Right.
oftentimes we're trying to get, just like you showed with the communication, we try to skip steps. In
Yeah.
Martha Beck, she's got stages of change. The
Yes.
first
Yeah.
one is a death and rebirth if we're going through a life and career transition, death and
Yeah.
rebirth. Then the second one is dreaming and scheming. So there's a time of contemplative, like I'm going to get my creative mind. Physicians like, no, I'm going to go right into square
Yeah.
three, which is action. I'm like, but
Right.
you miss. And so then oftentimes we go to places we don't want to go because we've acted before we've attuned and contemplated. So
Absolutely.
you've
Beautiful. Yeah.
shared so many nuggets for people to have. I was curious if you had one more takeaway that you'd want to leave with the audience today.
Mm. Yeah, I think, we started out talking about lightheartedness and dove into creativity, and I think those two are really closely combined. I think just encouraging listeners to maybe look for the lightheartedness in the day. Um, experiment with it, right? We're all scientists. Make a hypothesis. How can I find lightheartedness in the day? Is it showing up, right? And do a little scientific experiment.
I love that. I love that. What's the best way to people for people to connect with you?
Yeah, probably through LinkedIn at Susan MacLellan-Tobert, and also on my website, which is healingedgecoaching.com.
Well, excellent. I will have both of those links in the description to those videos. And for anyone who has any questions, thoughts, reflections, please share those in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you, Sue. This is such a meaningful discussion, and I'm so glad that you joined
Oh,
me today.
for me too, Jillian. It was delightful. So good to connect with you. Thank you.
Thank you.